Old versus new, retro versus modern, stuff from the past versus stuff from the future. One of my favorite types of bike tests to do is to take the two ends of a model's timeline. So the very first one and then the most recent one. In this case, it's all about the Triumph Daytonas. This is a 2006 Triumph Daytona, the original 675 triple, and this is the very latest offering, a 765 Moto2 limited edition. It's draped in carbon fiber and Öhlins, didn't really give the old bike a chance, but these two bikes represent the very first and the very last of Triumph's triple cylinder Daytonas. Let's talk a little bit about this Moto2 one. Triumph's released it as a Moto2 special edition. That's to kind of rally up some excitement about their Moto2 support project. Triumph, of course, now being the engine supplier for the Moto2 Championship. Does that make this a Moto2 bike? Absolutely not. I have to admit, when Triumph said they were going to release a Moto2 limited edition version of the Daytona, I was quite excited. That would be amazing. A razor sharp, proper, angry track weapon built on one of the bikes that's one of my all-time favourite bikes. How could I not jump up and down for joy? The bike they released isn't that. Don't think of this as a Moto2 version of a Daytona. Think of this bike as the kind of ultimate Triumph Daytona 675, by which I mean fantastic road sports bike and a track capable bike too. It is absolutely not a razor sharp, Larry chassised, proper racing bike. It's set up to be used and enjoyed by regular track day guys and road riders alike. With that in mind, it's a pretty special bit of kit. Öhlins suspension front and rear, fancy TFT dash, traction control, ABS, a lot of stuff that the old one just doesn't have. So first thing we did with these two bikes, you've got to take them to the racetrack. The Supersport 600 class was all about lap times, and in the era of this one coming out, it was a really closely fought thing, and it was a battle that always came down to performance on track. This Daytona 675, I haven't ridden for a long time. I dragged it out of mothballs, got it all serviced, took it to the track. It still feels as exciting today as it did when this bike first came out. It's tight, cramped, the bars are swept in, you feel almost like you're on a Grand Prix bike when you sit on it. It's a properly compact, uncompromising riding position. By contrast, the new bike feels bigger, roomier, and more comfortable. Something that Triumph evolved from these first models all the way through the Daytona range. Turn the key on, fire it up, this sounds like a raw mechanical bike. This one, on the other hand, same bass effectively of the engine, but it just sounds so much more refined and so much smoother. Now that's not an age or wear thing, it's just that in the time between this one and this one, Triumph did a lot of work to improve that mechanical noise, to reduce those kind of nasty mechanical engine sounds and replace them with things like nice airbox noise and nice exhaust noise. Out on track on the old bike, there's no ABS, there's no traction control, there's no ride-by-wire throttle, there's no adjustable throttle map. What you get is exactly what's there. To be honest, in this class of bike, I didn't really miss the traction control at all. When you go up 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, 200 brake horsepower, suddenly the traction control does feel like it's missing. But with this sort of horsepower bike, 110, 120, 130, to be honest, I didn't ever feel the need on track for the traction control. Likewise the ABS. Good tyres, warm track conditions, dry surface. To be honest, didn't miss the ABS a bit. And actually, while we're on the subject, the ABS on the newer bike did cut in and did annoy me. You can't switch it off completely. Well, you can pull the fuses out, but there's always that little feel at the lever of moving more fluid than you need to. Now, if you don't think that makes sense, go and squeeze the lever on an old bike like this with just a brake lever and some calipers and hoses between them. Then do the same on a modern bike where the hoses go via the ABS unit, round and round in circles and back to the wheel. There's always that extra sort of weight to the lever that is a tiny thing, and maybe I'm a bit oversensitive, but I definitely found the brakes felt nicer on the older bike. There was one bit of technology I really found myself missing, and that is the quick shifter. The new Daytona 765 has the two-way quick shifter on it, which is one of the best inventions for track riding. You pull out of pit lane using the clutch, and you never touch the clutch lever again. Just tap up and down the gears as you need. It makes riding feel freer, smoother, and dare I say it, easier. Yep, I've been spoiled by the new technology. Having to shift gears the old-fashioned way on the old bike, I was missing my quick shifter, I have to be honest. Now interestingly, these old Daytona 675s didn't come with a slipper clutch, when a lot of other bikes in the class did. Triumph always argued at the time that the way the chassis was set up and the way the engine works, this bike didn't need a slipper clutch. They've put a slipper clutch in the new one, but between the two of them on corner entry, there wasn't a lot to choose from. Elsewhere on track, the only problems I had with the old bike were perhaps a little tendency to shake and fight when you really pushed it hard. To be honest, this bike is 15,000 miles old. I can't remember the last time I looked inside the fork, and the rear shock absorber has definitely never been serviced. Even in that condition, it was still able to pull fast lap times and be a real hoot to ride on track. At no point was I pulling in thinking, this thing's junk, I want a new one. I was absolutely dying to ride the new 765 Daytona. And the first thing I noticed as soon as I shot out of pit lane on it, the engine's just got better and better. Where the old engine is raw and edgy, the new one has smoothed off a little, but it just feels like you've got smooth, seamless power throughout the rev range. Now some people have been complaining a little about the 765, saying maybe for the Moto2 special bike, they could have done a bit more to get more power out of the engine and make a bit more of an exciting thing. To be honest, on a track day, it didn't bother me. It's never going to have the power of a 1000cc supersport bike, and the power it does have kind of hits the sweet spot for me. It's enough power that out of second and third gear corners, it will start to wheelie on the way out, but not so much power that you're always fighting the motor and trying to get the chassis to tame it. Elsewhere on the bike, it's kind of the same story. It's a story of refinement, smoothing out, Triumph almost maturing a bit. All the ragged edges of the old bike have been smoothed over, making the new one that little bit more silky, a little bit more calm to ride. It's much less likely to shake its handlebars at you. When you overstep the mark, it calms down really quickly, where the old bike would still be fighting you halfway down the straight. It maybe doesn't steer quite as sharply as the old bike, but what it does do is hold a line far better, particularly when you get hard on the gas on the way out of a turn. And that means the new bike, you can pull the same lap time for half the effort of the old one. Now I can't lie to you, I was definitely a bit disappointed that the 765 Daytona wasn't the hard and fast, leery, edgy race bike that I kind of wanted it to be. But truth be told, a full, gnarly Moto2 replica with rock hard suspension, a twitchy chassis, and very little sort of softness and road-going manners would have very limited appeal. A bike this beautiful, you want to ride all the time. You want to go and enjoy it on a sunny Sunday. And a pointy, snarky, edgy race bike is no fun at all to ride to the shops. So where I think Triumph maybe could have been a bit braver and made this a pointy race bike, maybe they've played the clever card and made a beautiful bike that works well on track as well as it does on the road. One thing's for sure, the difference between 2006 Daytona and 2021 Daytona is massive and tiny all at the same time. The old bike is edgier, sharper, rawer, dare I say it, a tiny bit more exciting. But the new bike is more refined, smoother, and ultimately easily pulls the same lap times as the old bike trying its hardest. And with that in mind, that's exactly what Triumph's improvement has done over the last 15 years of development. They've not radically changed what they do, they've not radically changed the way they do things. They've just got better and smoother and more efficient at making really good, brilliant handling motorcycles.